Hello and welcome back to the latest encounter of the Teekay Couplings Production GTI Championship. This weekend finds us at a very warm Snetterton circuit here in Norfolk. With qualifying taking place in intense heat, we find both championship leaders starting on pole position. Now, last time out, Simon Hill dominated with 3 wins out of 3, but Tim Hartland didn't have his own way, with Pete Milne picking up a victory. With temperatures for the race still as high as yesterday, tyre management and car management will be pivotal. We have 2 races this afternoon. Race 1's about to start, so it's over to Scott for all the action.
Thanks, James. Cars are indeed lined up on the grid for race 1, and here is how they line up. Simon Hill and James Colburn on the front row of the grid together from Adam Hartz and Martin Walsh. Then Simon Vercoe and James Howlison from John Maudsley and Dawn Boyd on row 4. Row top 10 completed by Ryan Sayer and Brett Wallace from John Beale, Peter Elliston and Richard Marsh. Then back to the Mark IIs, it's Tim Hartland on pole position alongside Pete Milne from Chris Webb, Spencer Beale and Luke Hardman, rounding out the 18 cars on the grid for this afternoon's first race. So, 20 minutes of action, 18 golfs. Let's see who comes out on top in both classes. Lights out, and race number 1 is underway here at Snetterton. Immediately, it is side by side for the leads. We go on board with Adam Hartz down towards Richie's for the first corner. That's Martin Walsh to his left. We see James Colburn, man on the front row of the grid, trying to go side by side with championship leader and poleman Simon Hill. There's James Howlison battling with John Maudsley and Dawn Boyd as they head down towards the hairpin. Now we go on board with Dawn Boyd in the BMMC liveried number 42 machine into the hairpin. Everyone runs wide. Adam Hartz goes up the inside and says thank you very much. Goes past all 3 of them. Simon Hill also gives a cheeky wave. Thanks, James, for your second place. And now his next target is to try and reclaim the lead from Adam Hartz, who turns his way into Palmer, the left-hander, onto the short straight towards Agostini for the first time. So down towards the hairpin, little touch of the brake there from Adam Hartz, but that may be the invitation which Simon Hill needs to dive up the inside, and indeed it does, into the left-hander. Also Simon Vercoe, they're getting a bit wayward as he looks behind Martin Walsh, who in turn is trying to make a move on James Colburn for 3rd place. Mark Fives pull their way up towards Hamilton's. We go back on board with Adam Hartz, who now, instead of a clear track, has the familiar sight of the red Golf of number 51, Simon Hill. As they turn their way out of Hamilton's into Oggie's, big slide there. You see how much Adam Hartz throws the car around, as does Simon Hill. They turn out of Oggie's, which is an early apex. You let the car run wide all the way through the long exit of that corner onto the exit curbs. And then it's likewise to the 90-degree long right-hander of Williams and onto the Bentley straight for the first time. In Simon Hill's view, he goes through corner, he gets sideways, and the race leader's off the road. Simon Hill, the championship leader, is in trouble. He's off the road at Coram Corner. Through goes James Colburn, off to the left-hand side there, as Adam Hartz goes through into 2nd place, and there he is, bounding across the grass. I think you'll find the track is this way, Simon. As through goes Martin Walsh, through goes Simon Vercoe, and he's down to 5th position from what was a fairly comfortable lead heading to the end of the 2nd lap. So a drama and a rare mistake for the championship leader, the red man, number 51. He was quite red-faced, I'm sure, after that mistake. But back in the 5th position, coming under pressure from James Howlison in number 2. Already you can see Simon Hill with his technique soaring away at the wheel as he turns his way through Richie's corner, determined to close up to the 4 cars that have passed him. Looking back to the Mark IIs, here's Pete Milne under threat from Tim Hartland, who takes a dive up the inside into Richie's, but Milne takes the racing line and sweeps around the outside through the right-hander in the slipstream. Here he comes down the centre straight. This is the first car he has to pick off. Which way is he going to go, left or right? I think Vercoe's too busy trying to battle with Martin Walsh and not seeing that Simon Hill is going to charge up the inside. There he goes for 4th place. And that was a textbook move for Simon Hill. He caught him napping. Vercoe was too focused on the car in front of him to think about the car behind him attacking up into the right-hander and into turn 1. Simon Hill is through. Now his next target is going to be to try and get past his old sparring partner right in front of him, Martin Walsh. Now these two, whenever they're on track together, they do put on quite a good show battling amongst each other. These two are putting on quite a good show as well. This is Pete Milne and Tim Hartland into Richards. They go again for another lap. They have been passed by Peter Elliston in the process. As they come into the hairpin with the Mark V's, and that is Martin Walsh off the road. And there was no contact, but Martin Walsh's car is pulled up onto the side of the track. And unfortunately, that looks to be his race over. So some kind of mechanical issue has robbed us of what could have been a classic Martin Walsh versus Simon Hill scrap. And that is now easy picking for Simon Hill, unfortunately. I'm sure he would have liked to have had a good battle to earn that 3rd place, but he has unfortunately seen himself inherited by the fact that Martin Walsh's car has faltered him short at the worst possible time. We see Dawn Boyd here trying to escape up the road from Richard Marsh as they turn through the bomb hole. And now she's trying to chase after what looks to be, I think, John Maudsley in front. So She'll be hoping for a good result and some more solid points. There is John. And since we last saw him, both John Maudsley and John Beale, who is in the black, red and yellow machine in front, have switched places. Two cars that could be sent to switch places are the battle of a second place, because here comes Simon Hill down the outside into Ritchie's corner with a very loose rear end on that 51 car, goes scything around the outside of Ritchie's to take second place from Adam Hart's. I think Adam Hart's possibly let him have that a little too easy, in my opinion, but Adam Hart's, I think, was possibly forced to capitulate after he saw Simon Hill coming down to his left-hand side and thought, well, rather than try and risk an accident, just let him have the place and try and go with him as they both try and chase after that man, James Colburn. There's the battle that's going on for 6th and 7th place between John Beale and John Maudsley. This is the fight for 8th, which you see in there a bit behind. That's Brett Wallace just closing in on the back of Ryan Sayer. So nice little scrap developing here for looks to be 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th. It's good to see the Mark 5 classes continually have a nice consistent run of 13 or 14 cars. It's ever increasing since we saw the first 5 or 6 take to the track back in 2015, and now they're their own fully fledged class in the Production GTI Championship, scoring points, and this year, of course, we've got our second champion to be crowned. And all signs point to Simon Hill, but you can never tell it's all certain until the checker flag flies on the last race. It hasn't flown just yet, but there's a battle of a lead here as they go up the inside of Ritchie's corner. Simon Hill pulls the dummy on James Colburn. Colburn runs wide. Simon Hill looks up the inside to snatch the lead. They're going to go side by side down towards Wilson hairpin, but I think that all the work that Simon Hill's done to get himself up the inside will come to fruition into the hairpin at Wilson with a fantastic switchback move. He sold him the dummy, and James Colburn is back into second place, but Simon Hill back into the lead, and he leads this race in race 1 like the mistake at Coram never even happened. How about that? So now into the second half of the race, the task for James Colburn is get back onto the tail of Simon Hill and repass him for the lead now. I don't think he'll be able to put himself alongside when they get to the braking zone. Very tricky braking zones. You have to brake until you trail brake into Brundle Nelson, or either that or in a front-wheel drive car, particularly if you lift off. You have to make sure the car's set up well enough to be able to handle going through that corner at high speed, possibly off the throttle, because if not, the back end will step around very easily. And in these front-wheel drive cars, which do a fairly light rear ends, they can turn pretty quickly. As we saw Simon Hill, that's how he lost the back end. Went through the corner, lost the back end of the car, it snapped forwards once again, and he was off the road. Not so much here for Simon Hill, through the right-hander and into Ritchie's, what I believe should be the final time here at Snetterton in race 1 of the day here for the Teekay Couplings Production GTIs. And after a pretty crazy race, he's been able to get himself back into belief what could have been a situation where he possibly thought he'd thrown it all away, but it's been a fantastic drive back up from 5th to the lead, and looking to try and go ahead and clinch his 4th victory in 2 weekends so far. And if he can do it again later on this afternoon in race number 2, that'll be a fantastic tally he can carry into the second half of the season to try and march forwards towards him becoming the second ever Mark 5 champion. James Colburn, though, car number 1, is not done, and like we spoke about earlier on, are Simon Hill's tyres starting to go off a little bit too much here, because James Colburn is just keeping with him at this point. Looking back at the Mark 2s now, we're just seeing Tim Hartman now scrapping with Pete Milne. Hartman has managed to pull away now quite substantially as he turns his way through Ritchie's. He's now on the last lap of the race, and looks as though, touch wood, unless there's a problem for the number 9, I don't think Pete Milne will be able to get his 3rd victory in 2 years here at Snetterton, unless he can try again for race number 2. So down the Bentley straight for the last time comes Simon Hill in what's now a more customary leading position. James Colburn doing everything he can in what's now becoming a more customary second place for him. I'm sure he would like that to be otherwise, but he's got the pace to keep Simon Hill honest. But it just seems as though that anything anyone tries to throw at Simon Hill, even when Simon makes a mistake, he seems to have the race under control, and he finds a way to claw his way back to the front and control the race from P1. Into Coram for the final time. I think he's learnt his lesson. A little more tentative through the right-hander, hugging the inside to make sure the back end doesn't step out. In through Coram, up towards Morris for the final time. Straight and true on the exit, and the sprint towards the checker flag up the centre straight is going to be all he needs to make. It will be now a 4th win in a row after his triple at Anglesey. He starts the weekend at Snetterton in the best possible way. He could have lost it, but he got it back by the end of the race. Simon Hill picks up victory in race number 1, incredibly, at Snetterton, after dropping as low as 5th after his mistake. James Colburn picks up 2nd place, and Adam Hartz gets 3rd. And in the Mark 2s, there is your victor, Tim Hartman, who will come through to take the checkered flag after a great race-long battle with Pete Milne in the Mark 2 category. So as he crosses the line, we'll give you the results as to how they stand on the finishing order. And it's Simon Hill who takes the victory from James Colburn in second place and Adam Hartz in third. Then James Howson and John Beale rounding out the top five from John Maudsley, Dawn Boyd, Richard Marsh, Ryan Sayer and Brett Wallace. Then it's Peter Elliston and then Tim Hartland top of the Mark IIs from Chris Webb and Luke Hardman and Spencer Beale in fourth position in class, with Pete Milne sadly dropping out on the last lap of the race.
Okay, Simon, first of all, congratulations, fantastic win. Didn't go all your own way, you had a little bit of an off there.
Yeah, just dropped it all on my own, simply driving it too fast, which is kind of what we're here to do. But yeah, it was a quick area to go off around Coram. There was no way I was going to try and keep it on, so I just went across the grass and made sure that I didn't collect anybody else. And you have to come back and not have an advantage, but I came back in fifth, I think. So there was some fairly unpleasant language as I drove at the start, finish straight from my in-car camera, I'm sure. But apart from that, I just had to get my head down, drive the doors off it, and yeah, luckily managed to do it.
Well, yeah, it was a great comeback. With the temperatures as well, do you have any issues with tyres today?
Yeah, you do have to manage them a little bit. If you just drive it too hard, they will go off. But we're all in the same boat, we're on the same tyres. So what happens to one guy usually happens to the next, and it's just a case of not falling off like I did.
Well, congratulations, and I hope race 2 is a little bit smoother for you.
Thanks very much.
All right, Tim, congratulations. Fantastic victory today. You had a great battle out there with Pete Milne. Just talk us through how it went for you.
Yeah, it was a good battle. So I lost out to Pete on the first lap. He got by me at the hairpin. I kind of got boxed in behind the Mark Vs and he went round the outside of me. And then I just couldn't get by him. I tried everything I could think of, but he was making me drive around the outside of him everywhere. I tried so many times. Finally, I just slammed the door on him at the end of the straight and got by him and put my head down. And then I looked in my mirrors and he'd gone. So I don't know what happened to the poor guy. He obviously had a mechanical of some sort, but up until then it was great, really good.
Welcome back to Snetterton in Norfolk for the second race of the weekend for the 2019 Teekay Couplings Production GTI Championship. We saw a fantastic race one earlier on this afternoon with Simon Hill started from pole position in a bid to increase his championship lead, but didn't have an easy time of it because he did take the lead from the first couple of laps, then made a very rare error at Coram Corner, lost the back end of the car, went bounding over the grass, which saw him drop down to fifth position. He managed to pick himself back up through the field by passing James Colburn with a brilliant dummy pass into Ritchie's, got himself back into the lead. And with the race taking place in the later stages of the Sunday afternoon, it could mean that tyre management could be a little bit simpler for this second race compared to race one when the sun was a little bit higher in the sky. But whether anyone will be able to manage their tyres better or worse, we'll have to wait and see. So here's the grid, set by the results of race one, with Simon Hill and James Colburn back on the front row together again. Adam Hartz and James Howson on the second row from John Beale and John Maudsley on row 3. Then Dawn Boyd and Richard Marsh ahead of Ryan Sayer and Brett Wallace, who complete the top 10. Peter Elliston, Simon Verco, who doesn't start this race sadly, and Martin Walsh at the back of the Mark 5s. Then to the Mark 2s with Tim Hartland and Chris Webb on the front row of that class, with Luke Harberman, Spencer Beale and Pete Milne, who sadly won't be racing in this one, also with technical problems after he retired from race 1. So race 2, 15 minutes this time instead of 20, but the races shouldn't be any less intense. Up towards Ritchie's they'll go at the start of the race. Here we go, lights out, and race 2 is underway. And once again, it's almost like race 1. This at the start, back on board with Adam Hartz, and it's exactly the same site. Down towards Ritchie's, Hill on the left on the inside, Colburn on the right on the outside. As they turn into the right-hander, they're going to go side by side. It is Hartz in third position. John Bill with a good start from the third row. They'll get up to fourth place. He's going side by side with Hartz. Yeah, with Dawn Boyd looking to her outside is going to be James Colburn. They're all looking down the outside into Wilson Hairpin. Just as it was in race 1, up the inside of Colburn goes Simon Hill, and up into the lead from pole position goes number 51. So this time his task is going to be try and hold on to the lead and not make the same mistake he made in the beginning of race 1. You can see the sun is a little bit lower in the sky this afternoon, so as we said, temperature shouldn't be too much of a problem this time around as they come out of Palmer's on the sprint down towards Agostini for the first time. They're on board with Adam Hartz now, holding on to fourth position as they head back into the hairpin. So Hill leads, Colburn with a slightly tighter entry to try and have a look up the inside line. There goes James Howson. Dawn Boyd was under threat from John Maudsley by the looks of it. And there's our Mark 2s with Tim Hart on the head of Chris Webb, the former double champion, trying to regain his title after he missed out last year to Tim Hartland. So into Oggies now for the first time, and Simon Hill will be hoping to try and pick up another race victory. That will mean it'll be practically 5 on the bounce after taking the clean sweep at Anglesey. He wants to also do the same here at Snetterton and really cement his championship lead going into the second half of the season, which begins of course here this weekend. It's out of Williams Corner onto the Bentley straight for the first time. John Beale, with one of his better starts so far, he managed to pick himself up as high as 5th, capitalising on 1 or 2 mistakes and mechanical problems from the cars around him. So one of his personal best results. We see in the background there the blue car is Martin Walsh, looking to try and regain some positions for after his retirement in race 1. First target is going to be Dawn Boyd in the British Motorsport Marshals Club liveried number 42. Out of Brundle and Nelson they go. And Walsh still keeping as close as he can, but I'm sure he's a little bit further back than he would like to bring from the start. And into the bomb hole comes another scrap towards the bottom of the Mark 5 contingent. That is Peter Elliston ahead of Brett Wallace and Richard Marsh. Marsh is trying to take a look up the inside line. Just wasn't far enough alongside it and trying to get a pass through Coram. It's a very fine move to make if you can do so, but there's a very fine margin for error between possibly taking both cars off the road and possibly slipping up the inside to get the line just into the braking zone for Murray's. Down the pit straight towards Richards for the second time. The leading group sweeps through. There's Simon Hill ahead of James Colburn. And now the scrap for third place is on between John Beale and number 46. There he is. And Adam Hart's in number 22 trying to give him a lot of pressure here. He's now closing in toward the run towards Wilson. Under brakes, he's going to sneak up a look up the inside. He might do, but John Beale just about covered it off as they headed up towards the apex of Wilson. He sits back, has to grab another gear. Think about another move a few corners around later on in the lap. So looking back, there is Adam Hart's. He might come with a threat from John Malty behind him if he's not careful. Him at number 7. Head out of Palmer. There he is in the grey car. Just behind him there, scrap was developing between James Howells and number 2. He's being put under pressure by Ryan Sayer in the 51 as they head into the hairpin. It's number 61 for Ryan Sayer, I should say, because 51 is the man in the lead. So they turn their way out of Agostini. There they go. Adam Hart's now looking to try and pick up his second podium of the weekend after grabbing 3rd last time. He's got a rather stubborn John Beale in front of him to try and conquer. And now as we see Hallison being still put under threat here, and Dawn Boyd, while further back, has now just lost that place to Martin Walsh. So it's taken Martin Walsh about a lap and a half to finally get around the 42. A little bit longer than he would have liked, and he may have lost a bit too much time to catch the likes of Hill and Colburn at the front of the field, but he'll have to do his best that he can and use some of the clear air he's got now to try and catch this next group of cars. First target being, of course, Ryan Sayer when they get towards the leaders. There is the blue car in the background, running in what looks to be 7th position now as they head into Brundle and Nelson. And looks as though this time Simon Hill is black and white flag going out for, I think it must be for track limits, I'm going to imagine, because the top 2 have got quite a substantial gap now. And now we see Adam Hart's has closed back in on John Beale. He's pulled away from the cars that were scrapping amongst him. And if they come back down towards Richards again, John Beale is there just in front of him, but is there enough of a chance now for Adam Hart's to get through? There's Ryan Sayer, 7th place now, still remaining ahead of Martin Walsh as they turn out of Richie's corner. And again, Hart's this time going to the outside line, forcing Beale again to go defensive. He wants the undercut through the exit of the corner, but again, Beale parks the car on the apex and cannot allow Adam Hart's to get through. It's a great defensive effort from John so far. And all it's doing is bringing the 3 cars behind back into this battle as we come up through the left-hander at Palmer's now. What should be, looks like possibly the penultimate lap of the race here, so not long to go, and he's running out of opportunity, running out of time, running out of chances, running out of laps here. As we see a bit more as the sun's starting to peek out through the clouds here. So it might be a little warmer towards the end of the race as we head out through the Agostini hairpin. Still this 4-car scrap developing here as Hallison a little wide on the exit. This might give Sayer the opportunity he's been looking for to get through. Again, Adam Hart's just drifting the car nicely through Hamilton's up through the left-hander into Oggie's. And as we look back just behind him, this scrap continues to go on. No change in the order. Hallison has maintained the place ahead of Ryan Sayer. And up now towards the Bentley straight they go for the second to last time. And this should be a prime opportunity now for either Martin Walsh to get through. Meanwhile, back with our Mark IIs, Tim Hartman has pulled away in the lead. But now Luke Hardman is really putting Chris Webb under threat now. He's just got the road. There is Tim Hartman in the background. And back with our Mark 5s, it looks like Martin Walsh has finally managed to find a way up the inside of Ryan Sayer if he can force himself alongside. There was a bit of dust cloud in the background, which possibly suggests that one of the cars run wide on the exit. But no, in the background, the blue car of Martin Walsh, he's not able to get through. He can't get it done. So up through the bomb hole. And Adam Hart's now again looking this way and then the other. But still, John Beale will not capitulate. He will not give way. He will not give Adam Hart's a chance to get through. Into Coram and then into Murray now for what should be the second to last time. He's only going to get one more chance to do this. Cross the line they go. And Hart's and Colburn in a race of their own, it seems. The top 2 pretty much battling as if there's no one else around them. And pretty much isn't. They pulled away at a canter at the front of the field. And really is the race victory between these 2 So now the main contenders in the championship, and of course Simon Hill wants to complete the clean sweep. James Colburn wants to add a bit more of a blot onto Hill's copybook with a second victory of the season if he can. And here comes Adam Hart. Has he learnt his lesson this time? For the third time he goes to the outside. This time goes deeper on the brakes into the hairpin. Tries to pull himself alongside. He's on John Beale's door, but again he backs out on the exit. And again John Beale stays there in third place. Almost like a bit of a moving obstacle for Adam Hart. He just cannot seem to find a way through. So back up towards Agostini for the last time. And Simon Hill this time has pretty much driven a flawless race so far. He's had James Colburn on his tail right the way through from start to finish. And it looks like it's going to be the case on the run to the checkered flag. But even so, thankfully, no embarrassing moments that he ran off the road. It was a rare error in race one. We don't normally see Simon Hill make a mistake like that. But when it does happen, it is an absolute rarity. It's not a common sight we see from Simon Hill. And the reason why he's leading the championship is Adam Hart's again just throwing that number 22 car into the corner with all he's got and all the grip he's got left. Simon Hill brings the number 51 car, the race leader, onto the back straight for the final time, up towards Brundle and Nelson. He's pulled out enough of a gap on this last lap to prevent James Colburn being too much of a threat. Meanwhile, for third, one last opportunity now for Adam Hart's to make the stick. There is Tim Hartland, your leader in the Mark IIs, nice and comfortably. He's on course for a double-class win. For second place, it might be a bit more intense between them as we head back to our leaders in the Mark Vs. Simon Hill will turn his way up into the bomb hole with James Colburn, as ever, right on his tail. And after a bit of a shaky race one where he managed to pick his way back through to the field, it has been, as we said, a lot more straightforward for the 51 as he turns into Coram for the final time. He gets a little sideways. Hasn't completely learned his lesson from race one, but I think he's got enough grip left in that car to hold on. Has John Beale got enough to hold on for third place? So Simon Hill has one last big dive up the inside line. He's on the grass on the inside of the corner, but he just can't get it done. Hits the brakes and has to sit back. He might have to get him on the sprint to the line if he can. But Adam Murray's the final time up to the checker flag. It is going to be the double and a fifth win in a row for Simon Hill. James Colburn picks up second place. Now for third in the background, watch carefully. Is it going to be Beale? Is it going to be Adam Hart's on the sprint to the line? There comes the checker flag together. There's Tim Hartland coming across the line. And at the end of the race, it's going to be Simon Hill who takes the victory from James Colburn in second place. And John Beale did hold on just by about a quarter of a second in third, with Adam Hart's fourth, John Morsley fifth, at James Howson sixth, Walsh, Sayer, Boyd and Marsh, Peter Elliston 11th and Brett Wallace 12th. Then Hartland wins the Mark IIs from Chris Webb, Luke Hardman and Spence Beale. Another brilliant weekend of racing for the production GTIs. More of that later on in the season.
Simon, another victory, but that one was not comfortable throughout.
Yeah, pressure right from start to finish. But I love racing with James. He's a really fair guy. I know he's not going to do anything stupid or try and punt me off, and I won't do the same to him. And that usually develops into some pretty good racing between us. So we push each other pretty well. But there was no shaking him off today at all.
Race one, you obviously ran, had a hairy moment coming out of Coram. Yeah. This one, you couldn't do anything.
No, well, I was still having just a bit of. I've got quite an oversteery setup, which I quite like. But Coram's a long duration corner, and the heat builds into that tyre, and then it starts just to get near its limit. So it's hot day like today. You do need to manage it a little bit. You can't just do a whole race of qualifying laps, otherwise you just run out of tyres. So you do have to just look after them a little bit.
So Tim, a fantastic victory. It looked like pure domination.
Well, it wasn't really, because so Chris is driving his dad's car this weekend, and I think maybe his feet weren't touching the pedals or something in the first race, because he was really struggling for some pace. But he's getting quicker and quicker in it. So actually, although I did have an edge on him, it wasn't nearly the same as it was in the first race. But yeah, anyway, it was a good day. A couple of wins, that's great. Yeah.
Well done, great job.
Thanks very much.